What's up, guys? I hope you're having an amazing Sunday. You're relaxing a little bit from work from last week or studying or whatever. My name is Pepe Cuenca. I am a Spanish Grandmaster. What am I doing here today with all of you? Well, as you guys know, Dortmund Super Tournament started just yesterday in the German city with a lot of superstars. For example, Caruana is playing, Vachier-Lagrave, Kramnik, Ponomariov, Nisipeanu, etc., etc., Leinier Dominguez, for example. And I'll be trying to analyze the game of the day. Actually, the first round didn't disappoint. There was a lot of action going on. And we're going to take a look on the game between Fabiano Caruana, the wall number 3, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, the French, the wall number 4. So, of course, it's a big clash. As I told you, the game was really exciting, and I hope you guys enjoy as much as I did trying to analyze it. So, let's just see what happened in the 64 squares. So, Fabiano Caruana decided to open with e4. You guys know Fabiano is a very aggressive player, and Maxime replies with his favorite opening, the Sicilian. c5, knight f3, d6. As you guys know, for example, bishop b5 is one of the lines that Magnus Carlsen is using a lot against this Sicilian. It's a pretty solid approach, but of course the main line is d4, opening the center, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and now of course we can still enter in many possible Sicilians. For example, after knight f6, knight c3, we can enter into the dragon, g6, very exciting opening. Or we can also enter in the Scheveningen or Scheveningen, like Dutch people pronounce it more or less. Of course, my pronunciation is horrible. But also, knight c6, the classic Sicilian. We saw the last game of the candidates between Karjakin and Fabiano Caruana. We saw, for example, this line. And a6, actually, this is what happened in the game, what the French player played. And actually, he's one of the most expert players in the world in this opening. And it's a pretty interesting Sicilian. It's a pretty interesting opening with a lot of dynamic play. And here in this position, Fabiano Caruana decided to go for f3, one of the main lines. Just to let you know a few possibilities, bishop g5 is one of the main options. Also h3 is very trendy these days. And some other possibilities, bishop e2 followed by short castles and then bishop e3. But of course, f3 is one of the most played lines. You can also start with bishop e3, but normally black people tend to try to repeat with knight g4, bishop c1, knight f6, and later somebody can play f3, yeah? So f3, e5, of course you gain some space in the center, but the drawback is, of course, that now the d5 square is a little bit weak, yeah? So knight b3 and knight b3, bishop e6, precisely controlling this square, and now bishop e3. This diagonal is a bit weak, so it's really important to place the bishop over there just to complete the non-bad development with queen d2, long castle, and this is a race, yeah? These knight of variations are a race. Basically, you are gonna try to crush your opponent on the king side, and then he's gonna try to crush you on the queen side, with creating some counterplay on the c file, some b5 moves, some b4 maybe later. So yeah, this is actually a pretty dynamic play with a lot of counterplay with both sides. So bishop e7 was played by the French, queen to d2, short castles, long castle. Until here everything is pretty normal, has been played thousands of times. Knight bd7. I like this move more than knight c6, because one of the ideas is actually to play b5 and then knight b6. And from here this knight not only can jump to c4, it's a really active square, putting some pressure on the e3 bishop, but also control the most important squares, the most important square d5, yeah? So g4, Fabiano Caruana decides he has to run on the king side, and then of course the French does the same on the queen side, b5. What's going on here? And here we come to an important moment of the game. In this position, most of players, hundreds and thousands of games were played with g5, immediately just kicking this knight back. And in this moment, Fabiano Caruana decided to go for h4. Only a few games, and the player with most rating who tried this, according to my database, is Salansi against Bowling in 1992. So for sure a surprise for Vachier-Lagrave, and Fabiano Caruana had his own ideas from the laboratory for sure, yeah? So h4, knight b6. Yeah, now after b4 straight away, you can try to jump to a4, controlling this knight jumps, or you can try to go to d5. So both are standard replies. And after knight b6, of course, now you are threatening to go b4. If you do something not so smart, let's say h5, yeah, then b4 is actually quite annoying. The problem is that now you cannot go to a4, and you cannot also go to d5. There are 3 minor pieces controlling the d5 square. Then you will just lose a pawn, yeah? So that's why you have to be prophylactic against this b4 move. There are several ways, yeah? You could try to go g5, of course. And then the other move that Fabiano Caruana tried was queen f2. Of course, now you are threatening to take the knight on b6, and black has to do something about that. So there are a few possibilities here that I want to mention. So the first one is knight bd7, being also prophylactic against this push on g5. The other try could be knight c4. You can say, why Pepe, why Vachier-Lagrave didn't jump to c4 straight away, yeah? I guess Fabiano Caruana's idea was just to take on c4, b takes c4, and now knight to c5, yeah? This is one of the ideas of removing the queen from the d file. Now this rook is looking with x-rays to this queen on d8, yeah? And of course you may want to take on e6, and then this c4 pawn can be weak. You can always try to defend your b2 pawn with the knight on a4. You can also try to go with the knight back to a4, just a pretty solid position, and then aiming to attack on the king side. Yeah, so this could be an idea. The other idea could be just to go knight a5, and then you could ask me, what are you saying? You're stupid. You just this knight is just hanging, yeah. Just wanna check it. This is a knight for free. Don't do that. Don't be too greedy, because this runs into bishop b6. Boom, yeah. And now the queen is actually trapped. You just have the b4 square, and then after the humble move a3, the queen is trapped, and then you are losing the game. But after something like knight a5, you could just try to go queen c7. Really calm move, just defending the c4 pawn, just aiming to control first the b6 square and to put some pressure on the b2 pawn. And once you have controlled the b6 square, this knight here on a5 actually looks a little bit clumsy, and I don't know if you will end up having some troubles, yeah, because you don't have any route to bring it back to the action, yeah. So instead, in this position, Maxime decided to go for rook b8. It's also an interesting move. You cover the knight on b6, but not only that, you now are aiming to go knight c4. And when this arrow is not possible, when you take on c4, then actually when this file is open after b takes c4, the rook is on the right place, yeah, putting some pressure on the b2 pawn. So now, as I told you, black is trying to play knight c4 in the next move, so we have to run, yeah? We have to run with g5, knight fd7, and f4, just pushing our Facundo pawn to the action. And we reach here another key position in the game, yeah? So after e takes f4, of course, now you are threatening to go f5, and then this is just too much. So you have to take on f4, bishop takes f4, and then we have to analyze how the position changed. It changed a lot, so there are many ideas now. Now that the pawn is not on e5, sorry, you can try to regroup your knight via d4, and then maybe later to f5, just trying to create some damage to the black king, yeah? Also, now this square is vacant for one black knight. If in the future black is able to install a beautiful steed there on e5, of course we'll have a nice position, yeah? We have gained pressure on the d6 pawn, and yeah, and black now, since the bishop is not on e3, now knight c4 is not that interesting, so he decides to go for rook c8. Now this file is much more interesting than the b file, yeah? Because after knight c4, white is not forced to take on c4, since now the bishop is not attacked on e3, yeah? So after rook c8, there are few possibilities, yeah? One could, again, ask himself, what's going on here? Why don't you take the pawn on d6? Of course it's possible, yeah? It's not a bad move. But after bishop takes d6, rook takes d6, Maxim's idea was just to go queen to c7, yeah? Queen to c7, just sacrificing the pawn, really humble move, just forcing this rook back, and now trying to install a knight on e5, yeah? And you can see here now, just black is just a pawn down, but then it's just a c pawn that actually gives him a lot of counterplay against the white king. You have many ideas related with b4, knight a4, knight c4, and on the other side, white stack is not so dangerous, yeah? It looks not so easy to create some direct threats to the black king, yeah? So this was a really interesting pawn sacrifice by Maxim. And there are some nasty ideas here related of taking on c3. Let's say that, for example, you play bishop d3. This is some move that actually came to my mind when I was analyzing this game. Why not bishop d3? Just trying to analyze, maybe in the future, opening with e5, creating some threats on h7. Well, this runs into rook takes c3. Extremely interesting exchange sacrifice. After b takes c3, now knight a4, for example, putting some pressure on the c3 pawn. Black's plan is quite simple. You want to go queen c7, knight e5, rook c8, and so much counterplay here in this position. Let's say bishop d2, knight e5, and as I told you, queen c7, rook c8. And I think from the practical point of view, it's much easier to play with black pieces here than with the white pieces, yeah? So here, what Deng Jing was suggesting was queen to g3. Protecting the c3 knight after rook c3 now is not that interesting because you can just take back with the queen, yeah? And also you increase the pressure on the d6 pawn. And then if you manage to take the d6 pawn with the queen, it would be not so easy for black to create this beautiful outpost for the knight on e5, and then this queen cannot come to c7. Of course, any endgame will be great for white. So now you are actually threatening to take on d6. There was some interesting tries here for black, knight a4 or knight c4. Let's say knight a4 here. Sorry, knight a4. Yeah, the idea was to go as well knight d5, bishop takes, e takes d5, and knight db6. And you can just play rook h2 prophylactic and then just continue attacking on the king side. This looks a little bit better for white, yeah? But, okay, instead, in this position, Fabiano Caruana tries another solid approach, more positional approach, knight to d5, yeah? After knight takes d5, you had to take here e takes d5, bishop g4 was played. We have to say that bishop b5 is not that good because now knight d4 comes with a tempo, defending on c2, attacking on f5, and also aiming to jump to c6 with this beautiful knight there, yeah? So that's why bishop g4 was played, and bishop e2. Just after bishop takes e2, queen takes e2, rook e8, yeah, in this position, queen f3 was played. For me, it was a bit more natural to go queen f2 because you still have the same ideas related to attacking on f7, and you also keep an eye on the c2 pawn that is actually our weakest pawn that black could try to attack over the c file, yeah? So queen f3 was played, and now queen to c7. Attacking the c2 pawn. Don't let your opponent give you checkmate, yeah? So now you have to defend it. So knight d4 was played, not only defending the c2 pawn, but also aiming to jump to c6. And here I really liked the way of playing of Vachier-Lagrave. He went for knight b6. Really interesting prophylactic move. Maybe you never know here where to place your knight on c5 or e5 or b6. But on b6, not only wants to jump on c4 and then to put some pressure on the d5 pot, but also prevents white's attempt to install the knight on c6, yeah? Because, of course, now knight c6 runs into knight takes d5. And after knight e7, you can take back with the knight, protecting it from the rook and the queen. And if queen to d5, you can just take on c6, just with a pawn arm in a healthy endgame. So this is not good business for us, yeah? And then rook e1 was played in this position, just improving a little bit the position of our pieces. And here, bishop f8 was played, rook takes e8, and knight f5. And we can see that suddenly white pieces look a bit dangerous, yeah? There are many many interesting ideas related with going knight h6 that we'll see later in the game. Knight h6, after g takes, and then this file is open, and then after a check, the king will land on h8. If some piece manages to land on this diagonal, then will be a disaster for black, yeah? So of course you have to pay attention to all these threats. And g6 is not, I mean, it's not so easy to play after knight h6. Later, you never want to have a pawn on h6 in your mouth, yeah. So queen to c4 was played, and not only put some pressure on the d5 pawn, but also you want to take on a2, yeah. You want to take on a2, and it's not that simple to defend on a2. I mean, you cannot play the, of course, the mode you would love to play, king b2. You can play it, but then this runs into knight takes d5, and then, of course, after queen takes d5, queen f4. But then again, you can ask me, Pepe, what are you talking about? You don't have any idea about chess. You better go and watch the Euro Cup final today and don't analyze chess games. What happens in rook takes d5, yeah? There's nothing here. You can just, after rook e1, you can just go bishop c1. Nothing happens here. Don't tell me bullshit. So there is a move here. Rook e4, really strong move. Not only cutting the defense from this queen to this rook on d5, but also attacking the f4 bishop. And actually you win back the piece with a healthy pawn up. Let's say rook d4, rook takes, knight takes, queen takes, you defend the d6 pawn. This is just a healthy endgame with a pawn up, yeah? So you're gonna play king b1, but I really like the way that Fabiano Caruana played in this game. It was risky, but it was really nice. So queen to b4, now defending the d6 pawn, and also maybe you wanna go queen a3 in some lines. c3 was played, and rook c8. Yeah, and this looks a little bit dangerous for white. In fact, there are some lines that you can get crushed immediately. Let's say king b2. Yeah, let's say king b2. This is actually not good idea. There is rook takes c3, boom, ra-da-da-da-da. And the problem is after queen takes c3, knight a4 just wins the game on the spot. Yeah, so that's why you cannot go king to b2. What you have to do here is what Fabiano did, is rook d3, defending the d3 pawn, and there are some beautiful lines here. So knight takes d5 was played in the game. The problem is after queen takes d5, queen takes f4, just a pawn up, and after rook takes d5, rook takes c3, just wins the game again. So actually you cannot take it, but as I told you, I really like the way that Fabiano played this stage of the game. Bishop d2. Now of course you are threatened to take this guy with the queen, so you have to remove the knight, and now king to b1. And yes, black player Vachier-Lagrave is a pawn up, but suddenly our king is more or less safe, and then we have the initiative now. Of course, queen c5 is a forced move, and now it's time for us to improve our pieces to attack the black king, yeah? So you can try to go h5 or bishop e3 as Fabiano Caruana did, now improving a little bit the position of our pieces, queen c7, and there are many interesting ideas here. So now it's again a key moment I want to analyze with you guys. So the move that the engine was suggesting was bishop f4, increasing the pressure over the d6 pawn, maybe reaching an endgame a little bit better for white after we recaptured this pawn. Fabiano Caruana instead played queen f4. This is actually a mistake according to the engine, and we'll try to explain why. But then there was a crazy line here, knight h6, yeah? These ideas that we were trying to explain before, actually maybe it works here or not. Let's see what happens. Of course, you are forced to take back on h6, you take back with a pawn, and now you are threatening so many things, yeah? Of course, you are threatening just now queen g4 and bishop g4 with a checkmate. So one could think, what should I do in order to prevent this nasty check on this diagonal? Well, one could think that maybe f6 works, yeah? But now just queen to g4, and after king g8, king h8, sorry, or king f7, you can just take on b6, and the rook on c8 is hanging. So f6 is not possible. Then one more natural move could be knight d7. Of course, now after every check on d4, your plan is to put this beautiful knight on e5, cutting all the action, yeah? So now there is no checkmate, but there is this beautiful move, queen f5. And now after knight e5, bishop d4, actually white is a bit better. You want to go now rook g3 and then queen f6, or queen f6. Now you won't be able to go knight g6. And let's say you do some move like rook g8, what's going on here? You want to go as well bishop e5, and after takes or takes, you will just go rook g3 and queen f6 with a checkmate, yeah? So in this position, one again could say, what's going on if I just take on h6? The problem is after bishop takes e5, d takes e5, rook d7. Now you want to take on this on f7 with a checkmate. You want to take Facundo. So you take on d7, queen takes d7, and we reach this position after rook c3. What's going on here, yeah? So now queen d6 attacks the bishop on h6, the pawn and the pawn. You are forced to go to f8, and then there are two possibilities. So you can take on a6, after which you will go b4, just preventing, blocking all these pawns on the queen side. That is actually the only try for white to win this position, and this actually could be even dangerous at some point for white. Yeah, these pawns start marching. And the other try is just to go queen takes c5, but then rook c6, and then you keep the rook on the sixth rank, and then I think this is pretty hard to win for white. So this was a crazy line, but at the end of the day, it looks like black is holding in this position after knight h6. So as I told you, queen f4. We have to say that both players were in time trouble, and we're reaching move 40. So it's a really extremely complicated position. So we are gonna see some mistakes. So rook e8 was played. Now the French player understand that his rook is more useful in this file. Now there are ideas related with queen c6 and queen e4, trying to simplify the position. So h5 was played. Fabiano wants to checkmate the French player, and now rook e6, cutting all possibilities of going g6 now in this position. Yeah. So king c2 was played. This was another inaccuracy. Maybe Denjin was suggesting something like knight d4 or something like this. But king c2 is a really understandable move. You want to protect the c3 pawn, and then maybe you want to move your rook on d3, yeah? Queen c6. Now, you want to go queen e4 at some point, or knight d5. That's actually the threat, yeah? Knight d5, attacking the bishop, the queen, and the pawn on c3. Some moves like knight b4 are in the air. So, in this moment, yeah, Fabiano decided to take on b6. This is a difficult position, and then you start realizing that something went wrong, yeah? One could ask me again, what's going on after knight d4, Pepe? You don't have any idea, and just winning an exchange here. No, there's queen g2, rook d2, and now queen to e4, just reaching a healthy endgame with a pawn up again. So after bishop takes b6, queen takes b6, rook f3, there is some danger in this file. Let's say you do something stupid like b4, there is boop, knight h6, just winning the game. Takes, queen f7, king h8, and queen f8. But just Vachier-Lagrave plays queen b7, not only defending the f7 pawn, but also aiming to go queen e4 at some point, yeah? So knight e3 was played, rook e4, queen g3, rook e5, again, aiming to come here. Fabiano, of course, was more than happy with a repetition here, so that's why he played queen f4, but then the last good move, rook takes g5, yeah? Now this rook on f3 is hanging after queen takes, just queen f3 just wins the game. You are just 2 pawns up. So Fabiano decided to play h6 just to see if he can create some counterplay with some open files, but it's just not working. After g takes h6, rook f2, queen d7, just brings the queen to another better position, queen e6. Fabiano Caruana decided to stop suffering since his three pawns down, and then black skin is quite safe. You are aiming to push your h5, your h pawns at some point. So, and the white skin is also weak. So there was nothing to do here. The bishop on f8 protects any jump from the knight on f5. So we saw a lot of action in this beautiful game between these two super strong players. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this Najdorf games. I love to see the Najdorf in the elite tournaments from time to time. I see it gives pretty dynamic play, unbalanced position, and a lot of mistakes. So this has been all from me today. I hope you're having an amazing Sunday. As I told you, just have a lot of fun. I'll see you soon. Ciao!